You can teach aptitude, but you can't teach attitude. So how do you find the right people that maybe don't have the experience that's on the job description, that maybe don't meet the requirements that the recruiters want or the hiring manager want, but know that they can still do the job and afford them the opportunity to do that and put people in tough positions to fail. Because if they're never put in those spots, they're never really going to break the mold and succeed.
Welcome to Code to Cloud. I am Tim Chase, Field CISO at Lacework. And today I'm looking forward to talking with Wes Mullins, Chief Technology Officer at Deepwatch. Deepwatch's innovative cloud platform and borderless SOC extends their customers' cybersecurity teams and proactively protects their brand reputation and digital assets. Wes has nearly 20 years of industry experience, having started his career as a developer, then working in networking and finally cybersecurity. And prior to Deepwatch, Wes was the VP of Global Cyber at Nielsen. Wes, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
So I have known you for a while, and obviously I knew you back when you were at Nielsen, but I did not know you when you were a developer. So yeah. I'd love for you just to kind of talk through kind of that phase of your career. What did you do from a developer, and how did that get you involved into IT and security?
Yeah. So I started out building websites like most people did in the early 2000s because it was a pretty hot commodity and everyone wanted a website, even though no one knew what content they wanted. So you spent most of your time like, what do you actually want to tell people? And what is it this website is supposed to do? That then drove me into kind of just tinkering with other things. So I got really active into Python development, really active into C development. Some of the first stuff I wrote was IRC bots. So did a lot of IRC stuff back in the day, some very good, some of it very horrible, but it got the job done. And that led into several contracting gigs where I did some contracting for government agencies, primarily doing C development, and got really burned out, to be honest with you. It wasn't fun anymore when you were constantly being hammered on something that was changing. But I did a ton of research on, at the time, the DNS protocol, which was the primary focus for the drivers I was writing. That then led me into networking. So I got super big into layer 2, layer 3, did a lot of Cisco, Alteon, Riverbed, Nortel, rest in peace. And then that kind of was just a natural progression into tech. And I think I like to tinker with things. I get bored really, really quick. Yes, I'm a millennial. So I do 3 and 4, and I'm like, yep. Know all I need to know, check that checkbox and moved on to something else, which led me down dabbling with, IBM, AIX, did a lot of stuff with that, primarily DB2 administration, stuck on the open source Linux route for a while, which I guess wasn't open source, and then just kind of found my way into cyber via a couple friends that were like, hey, you're kind of doing this over here, but it's not really part of your job. You can go over here and people will pay you a fair amount of money to do it day to day. And I was very reluctant for a long time. And I stayed on the networking route and a lot of the back office admin stuff with Active Directory and PKI and Exchange bridgeheads before I made the commitment to move into cyber and never looked back.
That's awesome. So I know you wanted to stay a developer for a while. So did you, and then you made that move into security, but that's a big leap from there into kind of being a VP at Nielsen and running a big part of their cyber. Was it something that just kind of happened naturally, or what made you kind of be able to do that, go from developer up to leading a big cyber team?
I had a push by someone I would call a mentor. I don't know that he would. At the time, I moved over to PwC and was doing AppSec over at PwC. Basic AppSec stuff, and really didn't have a big interest in being a people manager, but ended up kind of being very vocal in a lot of conversations that were cross-team, cross-line of service, different countries, and was kind of, nudged into like, hey, we're going to have this other role open up. It's not just AppSec. It's got a little bit bigger scope, and it's got a couple direct reports. And I took it, and that kind of changed my trajectory. I fought it for a while because there does come a point where you're not in an IDE, you're not in Burp Suite, you're not in a command line. You're primarily focused on leading and then allowing those people to manage their day to day. And I struggled for a little while, but then kind of got the hang of it. And now I'm at where I'm at. because of it. And I'm extremely grateful for that individual and his push.
That's interesting. I love that. Good mentors are sometimes hard to come by, but they're always really helpful. But the other part of that story that's interesting is, you went into cyber, but now you're actually a CTO. And I haven't seen that a ton where, CISOs become CTOs. CTOs typically, may make their way up from VP of engineering or something along those lines. But how did you find that transition? How did that happen, and how have you found it?
It was not part of the plan at any means. The goal for me was always to get the CISO title. It's kind of, once you get into cyber, you're going to go this route, or you're going to go that route. My route was always be the CISO, be accountable, responsible for the entire cyber org, which is what I came to Deepwatch to do. So in 2019, when we were created and spun out, that was my primary focus, along with back office IT. And through changes at the top, strategic shifts of where we wanted to go as a company, the opportunity was there, and I would have been an idiot to say no to it. So definitely took the opportunity to kind of grab the bull by the horns, so to say, and are extremely proud of what we built as a company, not just what I've contributed to, but the people that were, there before me that kind of laid the foundation for us to be where we're at. And I'm really excited about the future, what will be the next 12, 24 months.
How does the CISO experience help you be a better CTO? Does it provide you with something that you think that maybe other CTOs don't have? Because we've all ran into it before, where like the CTOs couldn't, give a care about security. So does it give you a different mindset as a CTO that you're like, man, I wish other CTOs had this experience or knew that? Because
it definitely gives you a level of empathy, because when we were on the cyber side, it's typically hard no's on a lot of things, but it's not no. You got to say, hey, look, we can't do that, but here's one or two other options that are suitable for you to still be able to do what you need to do to accomplish your business goal, but done with a minimal amount of a risk where the cyber team accepts it. But each of those additional options means new rework in code, new rework in database, new rework in auth. So now, having been on the CTO side, where my keen focus is shipping features as fast as we can ship features, I am typically torn in the, hey, do we really want to push, the CISO forward? David's our CISO now, awesome guy, have a great relationship with him, but also don't ever want to put him in a position to be in a hot seat that we can avoid. So I think it helps, weigh the risk of shipping features fast and pushing product as fast as you can, where, typically the CTOs, the CIOs, the VPs of IT, they're just worried about speed and get it out and get it there. And if it's buggy, let the devs handle it. They can kind of, push off a lot of the cyber aspect. But from a CISO side, like the CISO role in the industry these days is not just about cyber. It's about business enablement. So how do you have, a cyber program where you have support from the board and support from the devs and the cloud team and the database team and the open source team and the Linux team? And it's a struggle. So I think I have benefited greatly from having dabbled in my career in a lot of other different roles and technologies, that I could see an individual just coming up the pure route of being a dev, becoming R&D, being a VP, doing CTO, maybe not having could put you in some really sticky spots.
Okay, so that's interesting. So kind of based on what you've learned, both as a CISO, because I'm not sure that we covered that before you were the CTO at Deepwatch. Just to be clear, you were actually the CISO
Right.
at Deepwatch, and then you kind of moved over to this role. And so you've got, not only the leadership experience at Nielsen, but the CISO at Deepwatch and then the CTO. Like, what do you think are some of the most critical qualities that a cyber leader should possess? Because, things are changing all the time, right? You know that better than anybody, being an MDR solution. Like, what are some of the most critical qualities you think a security leader should possess?
First one is culture and people. We can talk about technology and AI and automation. I think any good leader, whether it's cyber or any other role, needs to have a good handle on culture and the people. It needs to have a great relationship with the people team itself. Something I have learned here and am excited to carry on throughout my career and preach to others is, the HR team or the people team, whatever they're called, wherever you're at, like they're your advocates. Like they're there to help you, protect you, like ensure that you're doing the right thing. And typically, it's always kind of been oh man, we got to talk to the HR team, kind of know how it goes. But I've been afforded the opportunity here to have a really close relationship with our people leader, and seeing how that's been able to actually allow me to move faster with people and get people promoted and build an org that is primarily built from internal promotions year after year after year. And I think that is very, very critical. And also understanding the fact of sometimes it's, you can teach aptitude, but you can't teach attitude. So how do you find the right people that maybe don't have the experience that's on the job description, that maybe don't meet the requirements that the recruiters want or the hiring manager want, but know that they can still do the job and afford them the opportunity to do that and put people in tough positions to fail. Because if they're never put in those spots, they're never really going to break the mold and succeed. The second one I would have to say is building relationships. One thing I think, both of us probably learned at Nielsen is if you don't have good relationships with the other parts of the business that you have to work with, it's going to be a struggle because you need to get their buy-in. And having a great relationship, cross org, cross line of service, cross BAU, BU, OpCo, subco, whatever they call it, things just become, things on spreadsheets and swapping headcount and swapping budget and moving priorities up and back, become, random phone calls on a Friday. And that's the type of relationships you want to have. So, I think people and culture and then building cross relationships are probably the big ones. And that's not really specific to cyber or CTO or CISO. I think that's just good leadership in general.
I think that's spot on. I think, kind of fostering that collaboration across teams. And it can be hard sometimes, with a company as large as Nielsen, obviously, with 3 different business units and different leaders for each business unit, it's extremely hard. But I think that's how you get the buy-in for security. And I've heard that a few times from some of the people that we've talked to, right? Ultimately, security, like you said, is just kind of a number on a balance sheet or a person, on a sheet. It's one more thing they have to do, right? So, getting that collaboration and aligning kind of some of those stakeholders really helps security succeed.
Yeah, and if done properly, it goes back to the, security shouldn't just be considered a cost center. And most CISOs that are doing it well these days, like it's not considered a cost center. It's considered a business enabler. Just imagine the organizations where, the networking team didn't have a good relationship with the cyber team during COVID when the entire company had to go remote. There are situations that will continue to happen where, security is going to be your enabler to go as fast as you can go. Because they're going to let you know the minimum level of acceptable risk to go ship those features and make those changes that you need. But it all starts with, I'm not saying everyone needs to be best friends and go out and have drinks with each other. I think getting to that point in a career is just a byproduct of a good working environment, but you got to be able to trust those individuals, whether you like their personality and what they do outside of work. As long as you know that when it's 8 to 5 and they're talking about your organizations and they're making decisions on behalf of your organization, that they're doing it with the company in mind, and those tend to be super successful teams and collaboration efforts where you can move mountains really, really fast.
To kind of go along with the whole building and getting respect across different teams, I think you at Deepwatch are in a unique position that not everybody is, where you talk to a lot of different clients and a lot of different prospects. And so, I think every one of those teams probably are different. Every one of those clients are probably different. And so how do you tailor maybe like your leadership approach to all of these different clients? Maybe like have an example of a successful client engagement. Like it feels like you have to tailor it for each one. And so I'm just curious how you approach that.
I definitely tailor the demeanor and the approach. I think any good first customer engagement is a fact-finding session, not selling anything, not pitching anything, not comparing anything, most certainly not talking about competition, but really trying to find out what that individual wants, what they need, what they're trying to get, that individual or that organization, and what is their problem? Like, why are they in a room talking with you and giving you the opportunity when they're equally as busy as everyone else is in the world right now. And then, like some people have different personalities, and part of politics is figuring out a personality and someone you can be very direct and rude and crude with that will appreciate it and will let you fly for an hour straight. Others want to get coddled. Let's just call it what it is. Like they want to be the smartest person in the room. And you can't go in with too much confidence and too many right answers, because then that's not going to sit right. And that's in every aspect of business, not just cyber. So I like to go in, kind of feel the room, let the questions be asked, see what it is they're kind of looking for. Some of them are going to want to play stump the chump because some have a very technical background, and those turn into, who has the more technical acumen. Some of them don't know anything about the tech, and they have their right-hand man or woman sitting there that's really probably going to be the decision maker at the end of the day. They just want to know if it's going to be financially viable, your company isn't going to go bankrupt, isn't going to get acquired, and that you have reference customers. So it's figuring that out for the first little bit, and then, going left and going right through the rest of the engagement. So I don't think there's a silver bullet in one way you approach every customer, because every customer is different and they're all trying to solve what we would consider the same problem, but they're going about it their way, which is not the other organization's way.
Meet them where they're at, kind of deal. I mean, that's definitely typically, a little bit of a consultative style, like where you're a consultant, you don't come in with any assumptions, or you shouldn't.
Yep.
And just talk to them. And what are your problems? What are you most concerned about? Some may have all the money in the world but they have no process, or maybe some people have a process, but they don't have people, and just understanding
no budget,
what they want. No budget.
Smartest team in the world, but no budget. So
that's right.
You build it, there's a lot, and every organization is, they're going through the same shifting and, economics that the rest of us are. And you've got budget on Monday and you don't have budget on Friday, and unlimited hiring on Monday, and we're laying people off on Friday. And that's a common thing. That's not just a cyber thing. Like that's the world. And most people, that have been around long enough have gone through 2 or 3 different companies in each of those different scenarios. And there's no right answer. Like until you're that person in that seat at that time, you can only be so prescriptive.
Let's talk partnerships a little bit about. I love good partnerships. Back when I was doing the CISO thing, it was like I like to have those partners, those people that you could depend on, right? Because security can be daunting. So, how does modern security and partnerships drive value for your organization, do you think?
The most important aspect is probably not the tech, although I think we all love a lot of the tech and the tech that comes in play with it. It's the relationships, and having partners that have their own set of customer profiles, and being able to figure out what are they trying to solve, and do they have a problem that either we have a solution for or someone else has a solution for. Like I think it expands the net when you want to talk about customer satisfaction and customer solutioning. Having partners that all have different relationships with different people, because, like Deepwatch would be naive to be like, yeah, we know everything about every prospect. Like we don't. Same thing as Lacework doesn't know everything about every prospect. But being able to have partners that can bring the right individuals into the conversation when the customer's trying to solve a very specific solution, it's like that Rolodex, like having, that Rolodex, that Glenn Ross, like perfect list of people that are going to answer. Having that means a lot. And I think that's why you see the channel being as successful it is, and the entire partner community. And now you have organizations like AWS really, really leveraging it and getting down deep into it. Ultimately, yes, it's about technology and it's about additional markup and everything else, but it's really about the relationships that allow us collectively as an industry to help the customer in a more holistic manner, where it's not just spray and pray and hoping that something sticks.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you guys have done a pretty good job, I think, of kind of having some successful partnerships in the space. Like right now, I know, you're AWS MSSP competency partner, right?
We are
level 1.
We are,
and so
level 1 and multiple competencies.
Nice. Yes, exactly. So that's an example of a great partnership. So what do you think, what are some insights or some factors that you consider when you select potential partners?
The big one is the partner's reputation. Obviously, AWS is AWS. Like they kind of have one of the best reputations in the world out there. But other partners we have, just like, the partnership we have recently announced with Lacework was very much on, what does your current customer base say about you? What do your employees say about you? And we look at all that. We have those phone calls. We look at what's on the internet. We talk to people. We know people that work there. And it's, like the technology has to be able to do what it's going to do. But there are a lot of people that have really great technology, but they suck at partnerships or they suck at running a company and building successful relationships. So the technology is really just what I would call actually a small component of it. Are you going to help the customer and are you going to help the partner do what they need to do to deliver something to a customer? So, in our space, mine specifically, like there's a big difference between Lacework serving Deepwatch, who's running a managed Lacework offering, versus you serving an individual enterprise. We're going to have a different level of expectations. And a bug for us could impact hundreds of customers, whereas a bug for one customer may just impact them. So I think there's a different level of trust, transparency, expectations that have to happen in order for those to be successful. And you kind of figure all that out in the very beginning, like just on how do you work together and how are these emails and how are these meetings going? And does it seem collaborative? Does it seem one way? And I think a lot of it goes back to the culture. And are we a good culture fit for one another and going after the customer the same way? And, you have your different archetypes on super aggressive and very humble and, should be a nonprofit. It's how are y'all trying to solve what is a very similar problem and are y'all trying to go about it the same way?
Exactly. I think kind of making sure you're on the same line. And I know, Lacework and Deepwatch kind of think along the same lines there, right? Which is why we are partners and we're good partners together. So I love that. But when we're talking about Deepwatch, I think one of the things you've said is, every customer has the cloud, but they struggle in the cloud to get Deepwatch what they need to deliver MDR. So what does that mean? Like, can you expand upon that and then just maybe talk about how you deliver, like what kind of effective communication coordination are needed?
Definitely. So, our average customer today is sending us 130 plus individual log sources, technology types. Some of our larger ones have 300 plus. I mean, at some point during, either onboarding or BAU, like cloud comes into play, whether it's AWS and that's Azure, or that's GCP and those crazy people that are still rocking Oracle and all that other stuff out there. And a lot of times those conversations become conversations where there's three different people on it. You have the security team, which is working with the MDR provider. You have the cloud team, and then maybe you have the DevOps, DevSecOps team. And it's hey, how do we actually get them Azure Event Hubs? And that becomes very what we would call consultative type of work for a bunch of individuals who, they're not AWS experts, like they're Splunk experts, and they're threat hunting experts and they're, detection engineering experts. We have all of the documentation that can be provided, but what we have looked to do is to kind of expedite that. Obviously, key reason why we recently announced the relationship with Lacework is it's easier for us to go to a customer and say, hey, you've got 35 AWS accounts, half are in Control Tower, half are not. You've got 12 Azure accounts that are all standalone. Instead of you trying to shotgun spray, getting us every single one of those one at a time, why don't you go work with a partner that does a little bit better job of onboarding, gaining visibility into that, and then simply send us the output of that. That rapidly increases the time to value for those customers, but selfishly gives me what I need so we can start alerting on malicious activity. Because it's not, you can't say when you wind up on the news, well, the customer didn't give us all the data, so we had blind spots. And that's never a position we want to be in, nor is that a position a customer wants to be in. So it's having the candid conversation of, the sooner you get us X, the sooner we can bake that into threat probability value and start providing the actual managed detection and response capabilities you're paying for. Or we can continue to go at it one at a time And maybe in 12 months, when your Azure admins and your GCP admins and your AWS admins, which are all different, that all then have their own dev teams, can figure out how to get this data, then we'll get you onboarded. And no one wants to wait, that time frame. We've also spent a fair amount of time on the AWS built-in program. So at Reinforce, we announced our AWS built-in partnership, one of the first to get launched in that as well, which is basically going to allow us to have customers run automations that we had built internally. That's how we build our environment. They've been vetted by the AWS internal cybersecurity team, and we will be allowed to pivot into their environment and launch them and do a lot of that initial grunt work up front.
For everyone who doesn't know that, maybe talk a little bit more about what that is. It's just kind of a quick way for you to get really interconnected in customer environments real quick without you having to tell them to do that at the very beginning, right? With like you said, the spray and pray.
Yeah. And I believe you guys are one of the first 10 that got launched as well. It's another example of, we both chose, actually, I think they chose us because there was a long list. So let's, be a little prideful here for
That's right. Be a little prideful. You can brag. It's okay.
They chose us and said, hey, we like what you're doing. We like what your technical team has done. We've probably both gone through a vast amount of audits with distinguished engineers and all the different exams. And it's like, hey, we want to solve a problem for a customer, but both of our organizations are kind of, handheld by, we don't own the account. There's only so much we can do. And, AWS sees that on their end as well. So how do we, and those are their paying customers. So how do we work with each other to where their paying customers can feel more comfortable about their sensitive workloads in AWS? And built in is the byproduct of that. So, taking our custom CloudFormation stacks and having all the automation in play to go do post-build config at the point of a button. And, that's going to allow us for customers that want to take that route to go launch that will then pre-configure those native services inside of AWS, set up everything they need, start auto logging and forwarding for us. So selfishly, we get the logs so we can see what's going on in the environment and we can start delivering on our service. And I think you guys are in a very similar boat, guys and gals, in a very similar boat with y'all's recent approach with built-in as well.
No, spot on. Yeah, we are. And that certainly makes it a lot easier for the customer when they're trying to get it spun up. We've talked a lot about kind of setting the partner up or setting the customer up and having them succeed. But, on the flip side of that, how do you make sure that you guys are staying up to date with the threat landscape, right? Obviously, it's always changing. Customers are shipping all this to you, assuming that Deepwatch knows what they're doing and what they're talking about and that they're staying up to date. Like, what do you do to manage that threat landscape?
Oh, man. Well, I don't do anything because I'm not the CISO anymore. No,
that's right.
I don't want to say too much. I don't want to be out there trying to put a target on David and his team's back, but we eat our own dog food. All the tech that our customers get, we also use internally. We have a really strong team under David and Chad that kind of handle the day to day. And it's kind of it, man. Like, we have no secret special sauce. We're not going to tell you we're running GPT-6 internally and or any of that. We are following the same approach that we afford to our customers, and we follow MITRE mapping and where our coverage is, and NIST and CIS, limited span of control, zero trust everywhere we can zero trust, no VPNs, no site to site, no remote access. It's a very methodical approach, but that's also what people get when they sign up for Deepwatch. So we try to not steer too far left and right from what people actually pay us for. I think the perception would be really, really bad, but we got a lot of really smart people that work in our delivery organization, that work in our solutions engineering organization, that work in our ATI, adversary tactics and intelligence organization. And they, that's what they do every single day. Like, they are looking at threats, they're honing in on threats. We have a awesome opportunity because we're channel only to dabble with lots of different pieces of technology. I don't want to say we're always ahead of everyone else, but being a startup, living in the space that we're in kind of affords us the opportunity to get in front of some of the, what we would call more innovative products. That's really it, man. There's without saying too much, which that was a ramble. So
that's all good. There's a lot of stuff that goes on the back end with threat intelligence and the way you guys do it and having a dedicated team. That all obviously goes into it.
Tons of it.
Okay, time for rapid fire questions with Wes here.
Okay.
Are you ready? All right.
Do it.
Get your brain in gear. What's the one tool that you can't live without?
I hate to say it because I hate it, but Slack. I mean, like email is pretty much a black hole these days. And sorry for anyone emailing me and not getting a response. I mean, but Slack, and we do a ton of Slack, and we've got Slack bots and we've got Slack integrations. Like it is a kind of single point of, I can look at Jira's in Slack. I get updates on Jira's. I can look in Confluence. I can look at integrations we have with all of our threat intel platforms. Like it is a way that I consume information in most cases without having to go to my team and ask them. Because all of those other places are in there. So instead of me needing to go to Jira and look at a solutions engineering ticket for a new piece of content someone wrote or once written for a new MITRE coverage, I don't have to ping Carolyn and ask her to let me know when that is updated or when it's changed or when the SPL gets done with it. Slack tells me that. And then I continue to go on about my day to day. So as much as I hate it, I consume a lot from it. And it's how I consume a lot of internal information.
Yeah, ditto there. What emerging technology or trend in cybersecurity excites you the most? And minus 10 points if you say anything related to AI.
I personally am a big fan of identity and getting rid of the password. But I don't know that anyone's ever done it well. We have dabbled with pretty much every passwordless vendor that is out there. But they're all just still generating Windows passwords and storing them in LSAS like everyone else. You just don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
They just abstract the token from you. And there are companies out there that are true, Biometric and some others, but that is a space that I still think has a lot of opportunity to improve, where it doesn't require you completely revamping your entire infrastructure. So a lot of them are like, oh, well, we can do it, but every single laptop and every single server has to have a way to do a fingerprint or eye scanner. And it's like, well, if you're only getting rid of your user base, but then you still got 12,000 servers that all still have root/root 123, did you really solve the true problem? So I would like to see identity as something. Obviously, AI, ML, all of that is great. Everyone's doing it. It's trendy, just like the cloud was trendy, after people had been doing distributed computing for a decade. So I think AI and ML will be pretty cool in the next 3 to 5 years. There will be a lot more mature, useful use cases than what we have now, which a lot of it is marketing.
All right, last question. How would you describe your leadership style in 3 words?
Get shit done.
There you go. That's our motto too. I love it. All right. That does it today, listeners. Thank you for listening to another episode in Great Conversation. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe, and we will catch you next time on Code to Cloud.